This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As we turn now to Jackson, Mississippi, where the Environmental Protection Agency is launching a civil rights investigation into whether Mississippi officials discriminated against Jackson's majority black residents when it refused to use federal funds to address the city's dangerous water crisis. The EPA said Thursday it's probing Mississippi's Department of Health and Department of Environmental Quality over their role in the crisis that left tens of thousands of mostly black households without drinking water. Jackson's main water treatment plant was damaged after flooding in August, and viral videos showed brown liquid flowing from taps. In 2021, residents lost access to drinking water for weeks after a deep winter freeze. Even when the water's running, residents have faced months-long boil water orders. A complaint filed by the NAACP led to the EPA's investigation. NAACP President Derek Johnson lives in Jackson and called the state's record of divestment systemic neglect. Mississippi's received federal funds to address drinking water needs since 1996, but gave Jackson funds just 3 times. For more, we're joined from Jackson, Mississippi by Abri Connor, director of the NAACP Center for Environmental and Climate Justice. Welcome to Democracy Now!, Abri. It's great to have you with us. Why don't you lay out the issue, including the governor mocking Jackson for its water crisis, and what Congress allocated for Jackson, and yet it didn't actually go there?
Yeah. Well, to your point earlier about Jackson only getting federal funds out of 3 of the last 25 years, that really kind of goes to the heart of what is the issue. The water in Jackson has been weaponized against them by the governor, by the state, because oftentimes federal funding for water infrastructure, it flows to the state first. So even though we have the promise of Justice 40, we have the promise of historically disadvantaged communities like Jackson, Mississippi, to be prioritized whenever it comes to federal funding. That's not necessarily always the case.
So last month, Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves came under criticism for disparaging his own capital city, Jackson. This is Reeves speaking during the groundbreaking ceremony for Jones Capital LLC headquarters.
I've got to tell you, it is a great day to be in Hattiesburg. It's also, as always, a great day to not be in Jackson.
Always a great day to not be in Jackson. Jackson is overwhelmingly African-American, over 80% of the city. Abri, talk about this.
Yes. So Governor Reeves has mocked Jackson residents. The governor, at points, it seems, thinks that it's a joke. And so that was one of the reasons why we felt like it was so important to file this Title VI complaint with the EPA. Because it's not fair that Jackson residents for decades have seen the disinvestment in their city. It's the state capital, and it's also 83% Black. But then you have a governor who's making comments like that, and individuals don't even trust their tap water, where they're spending their tax dollars where they should be able to have safe drinking water, and that's not the case. But this Title VI complaint really demonstrates that we're not going to sit aside and allow for someone who is in an elected position in the state to be able to allocate federal funds to places like Jackson to get away with discriminating against a large Black city. But this is something that Governor Reeves has been doing for a while. Even in his previous positions, like lieutenant governor, when he was treasurer, he utilized those positions to try to harm Jackson residents. And so this has been a long time coming. You've had a number of Black mayors who have asked the governor, who have asked the state for funding to fix the water infrastructure issues in Jackson, Mississippi. And because there has been neglect, because there has been intentional disinvestment, quite frankly, for a number of years, the number keeps growing for how much it's going to actually cost to fix water infrastructure issues in Jackson. This is also an issue because, again, there's supposed to have been a prioritization of funding, of federal funding in places like Jackson, Mississippi, by the EPA, by other federal agencies. But because the money flows to the state first, then they get an opportunity to, quite frankly, weaponize these funds that are supposed to be utilized for Jackson against them.
So last month, Brie Connor, you testified on the hearing on water infrastructure. In your prepared remarks, you said the effect of climate change on Black people has finally come into national focus because Black people experience the most horrific impacts from historic disinvestment in communities. Can you elaborate on this?
Yeah. Well, what we've known is that for years, Black communities have faced intentional disinvestment. When you look at places like Allensworth that tried to build in California, in the Central Valley of California, nearly 100 years ago, the reason that they weren't able to actually move forward was because the company actually moved the wells that were supposed to be in Allensworth to Alpaugh, that was a majority non-Black city, neighboring city to Allensworth. We've seen this disinvestment in other Black communities. We've seen it in Flint. We saw the crumbling of Rosewood, for example, because the governor